Last night, the Republicans had a spectacular victory in Virginia, and congratulations to Winsome Sears, the first African-American lieutenant governor of the state of Virginia and a Regent University graduate. So congratulations to you, Winsome. Republican newcomer Glenn Youngkin, well, he defeated Democrat Terry McAuliffe to win the governor's seat.
This upset is a huge blow for President Biden and the Democrats. The big question, what impact will it have on the 2022 midterm elections? CBN's Tara Mergener has more from our Washington News Bureau.
Well, Ashley, it was a stunning victory in a state Joe Biden won handily in 2020. Republicans sweeping all statewide races, governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. Youngkin's win returns the Commonwealth to the GOP after 12 years of Democratic control.
All righty, Virginia, we won this thing!
Youngkin, a political newcomer and businessman, headed into Election Day tied with former Governor Terry McAuliffe. As the numbers came in, McAuliffe's hopes for a second stint in the governor's mansion started to fade. Addressing his supporters earlier in the night, he refused to concede, while some hope remained.
So we still got a lot of votes to count. We got about 18% of the vote out, so we're going to continue to count the votes because every single Virginian deserves to have their vote counted.
Now, the road to Election Day included bitter ideological and cultural battles over issues like education, vaccine mandates, abortion, and the economy. The GOP sweep halts a Democratic trend in Virginia. The last time a Republican won a statewide office was in 2009, Gordon.
Well, Tara, break it down for us. How did Youngkin close the gap? I mean, just a few weeks ago, a month and a half ago, it seemed like McAuliffe had the race.
Yeah, it was pretty stunning, wasn't it? A few factors that went into this. You know, the credit to Youngkin closing this gap, concerns over the economy. That was the top issue for a lot of voters this time around. Independents. By some estimates, they make up a third of the voters in Virginia. And at the end of the race, some polls showed Youngkin ahead with independents by double digits. 8 points, 18 points, 23 points as of some of last week's polls. Now, some of the voters were not fond of Donald Trump, but found Youngkin an attractive candidate, and he really walked a fine line with Trump's support. It appears by the numbers, he did that very well in keeping those independents. Education was huge. Terry McAuliffe telling parents in the last debate that they should not be telling schools what to teach their children. And most pundits would agree that was a mistake, especially with places like Loudoun County and others getting national attention about opposition to critical race theory, transgender policies and other issues. And by the way, we all know Joe Biden's numbers are on the decline, and McAuliffe's trended down along with him, which helped Youngkin close that gap, Gordon, and ultimately pull ahead.
Well, it seems like it's a way for Republicans. What happened on the down ballot, Virginia's House of Delegates? What's the outcome there?
Well, in several closely watched Virginia House of Delegate races, Democrats held on to their seats in reliably blue districts in northern Virginia. This morning, the Republican Party declaring victory on that matter, but it appears that Republicans are going to regain majority of the Virginia House, though it's not official yet. As of this morning, we've still got nearly 20 races to be called, and so far, the GOP has picked up 2 seats for sure in rural areas of Virginia, and they are leading in 4 others in Democratic control. So overall, they're going to need those 6 seats to win an outright majority in the House. And Democrats, by the way, went into Election Day defending a 55-45 majority. So exciting for Republicans on that front as well, Gordon.
All right. Tara, thanks for the reporting. Let's go over to CBN political correspondent David Brody. So, David, what lessons are we hearing? I'm already hearing from progressives that don't blame this loss on them, and then I assume Republicans are going to take a whole lot of credit. So what are the lessons to be learned?
The Democrats overreached. That's just pure and simple what it was. I mean, look, they decided to push critical race theory in the suburbs, in schools. They decided to push the transgender bathroom policy, which came back big time to haunt McAuliffe in Virginia when we had that sexual assault situation in the Loudoun County area. And then even if you look in New Jersey, what Chitterelli has done in New Jersey, which is really just an unbelievable story, what's happening in New Jersey, that issue there was vaccine mandates. And an issue that was what Chitterelli was trying to do there was to say, look, parents deserve the choice, right? It's always about a choice in terms of what needs to happen there. And so you put it all together, it was an uprising in the suburbs, plain and simple, because parents said enough is enough. Democrats overreached, and this is what you get. And I've got to tell you, Gordon, as I kind of, once again, I know we like to geek out together to a degree, I guess. But if you look at Loudoun County, and remember, everything went through Loudoun County in Virginia, it was up about 40,000 votes in Loudoun County. 158,000 people voted in Loudoun County this year, in this election. 4 years ago, it was 118,000. The difference, 40,000 more people voted in Loudoun County. And Glenn Youngkin got 44% of the vote in Loudoun County. Ed Gillespie 4 years ago got 39%. So he's up 5% more. There it is. The iceberg was in Loudoun County all along. Terry McAuliffe found that out, and the Democrats did last night.
Well, let's go ahead and geek out and let's look at the profile, if you will, between New Jersey and Virginia. In Virginia, you have a third that say, well, I'm fiercely independent, and sometimes I like to vote Democrat, sometimes I like to vote Republican. But in New Jersey, as you pointed out 24 hours ago, there are 1 million more registered Democrats. And so it's a Democrat stronghold. For this to now be leaning Republican at the governor, I mean, if you told me this 24 hours ago, I would have said that's impossible. But now it's not just possible, but it looks like a Republican could win. So is this a referendum on Joe Biden and what's happening in Congress today?
There's no doubt it's a referendum on Joe Biden and the policies by the left, if you will. And Joe Biden has embraced those leftist policies. And if I could geek out for a moment on New Jersey, it's my home state. And so, well, long story, I won't go into my psychotherapy about New Jersey. But the point is that in Bergen County, that's where I grew up. Bergen County was a Republican for a while. Then it switched to Democrat about 5 years ago. It's been pretty solid Democrat for a while. Phil Murphy, the Democrat, won New Jersey 4 years ago won Bergen County 4 years ago by 15 points. He is up only 4 points now in Bergen County. That's an 11-point swing in the most populous county in New Jersey. That is a big deal. What's the reason for that, Gordon? Here it is, plain and simple. There were so many school board, what's the word I'm looking for? Elections, thank you. School board elections in Bergen County. And what was happening at the grassroots level, people were coming out for the school board elections in Bergen County because they're frustrated with vaccine mandates. They're also frustrated with critical race theory and other things. And so that was a groundswell, if you will, that helped Chitterelli in New Jersey, specifically Bergen County. So that can kind of explain a little bit about all of that. Now, you mentioned the Democrats and Biden's agenda. It's interesting because I had a chance to speak with the former UN ambassador, Nikki Haley, about all of that last night, actually, during election night coverage, if you will. And we're going to have more on that on the 700 Club. But I want to play you a little bit about what she specifically says, Gordon, about Democrats and the socialist agenda. What's the real issue here as it relates to what Democrats are trying to do to the country fundamentally?
I think they're trying to change the foundation of our government. I think this is creating socialist rule and government overreach. That's what they're trying to do. They want government to tell your kids what they're going to learn. They want government to tell you whether you work or whether you don't. They want government to say, no, you shouldn't be married. We'll pay you not to be married. They want government to tell you all of these things and control your life. And that's not what we want. That's communist China. We want to make sure that the freedoms are in the hands of the people. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do and be anything you want to be without government getting in the way.
So, Gordon, there it is. It's the Democrats are at a critical juncture right now. What do they do exactly moving forward? They're going to have to make some tough decisions ideologically and otherwise. And critical race theory was big. And it was a critical election, and Democrats have a critical decision to make as well.
Can I get a prediction from you? What do you think is going to happen with the Build Back Better bill? Will Democrats split over these elections, or will they actually be able to pass legislation?
Well, I believe that ultimately they will pass something, Gordon. I really do. I think Manchin will eventually get on board. I'm not saying it's going to be 1.75 trillion, whatever it ends up being. But this is kind of in a way too big to fail. And what I mean by that is that Democrats in Washington, national Democrats, believe they have to have something to show voters. So they believe $1.75 trillion in this Build Back Better is going to be something good for them. I'm not quite convinced that's the case. I think it feels a little bit more like social engineering to me. But the point is that they at least feel like can run on that in 2022. I think that is a major, I think it's a problem for them if they think that's going to do the trick in 2022. Look, I got to tell you, Gordon, the way Virginia and New Jersey have gone this month in these elections, not only would Republicans at this point take back the House, they would probably win the Senate as well. Because remember, if Republicans are doing so well in New Jersey and Virginia, some blue states, get ready in 2022 when Arizona and Pennsylvania and some of these other less blue states come into play. Boy, I tell you what, the Democrats could get steamrolled. They could lose 60 to 70 House seats in the midterms and possibly up to 4 Senate seats as well. This could be a bloodbath in 2022 at this point.
All right. Well, be just sure to tune in tomorrow to see David Brody's full interview with Nikki Haley right here on the 700 Club. Let me add one more piece on the election. Thank the Lord, the city of Milwaukee decided to keep their police department. It's amazing. It was actually on a ballot to defund the police and abolish a police department. But the citizens held on and said, no, we actually need law enforcement. So congratulations.